All right, y'all, welcome to the webinar here. I'm Humble Howard from the Humble and Fred Show, and I am excited to be part of this group again. This is titled What You Should Expect to Pay for IT Support, IT Service, and IT Security for your business. Let's say hi to everyone, starting with the chairman of the board, Barbara Paluszkiewicz. Hello, Barbara. Introduce yourself, and then we'll go around the room here and find out who everyone else is. Barb, hello.
Hello. Can you hear me? Can you see me? I hear the music in the background.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to be okay.
Barb Paluszkiewicz. Oh, hang on a second. In honor of Barb, I've got my little CDN Technologies. There we go.
Thank you. It's very rare that I say this, but can we turn the music down a bit?
All right, music's down. Okay, let's go around the panels and say hi to everyone.
Okay.
We'll start with Paul Nebb. Paul, hello and good morning.
Hey, good morning. Paul Nebb. I'm with Titan Technologies. We're in Central Jersey, about an hour outside New York City.
Along with Henry Overton, who's from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. It's just a fun city to say. Henry, welcome.
Good morning, Howard. How are you doing this morning?
Fantastic, sir. Feeling good. Right next to you is the Brooklyn-born. He's crazy. He's ready to do this thing. Alper, where are you this morning?
So this is Alper, Absolute Logic, right there, as you see. Howard doesn't have my sign, so I'll just show off my shirt. How's that? And we are in Wilton, Connecticut, is where we are, where we hail from today.
And
which is in the shadow of New York City, if you would.
Yes. And beside you from, I love another, Bristol, Tennessee. It's a beautiful day to be in Bristol. And we'll say hi to Tim Meredith. Tim.
Tim Meredith, Tech Eagles, Bristol, Tennessee. Happy to be here.
Yeah, and I just want to encourage everyone, if you're watching this and you've got some questions or comments, feel free to respond in the chat. Everyone will see your questions or concerns, and you can always follow up with any or all of our panelists this morning as we talk about some of the ins and outs of the world of IT security and some of the things that you may have questions about. And this is the expert panel that can answer them. So let's, without any further ado and delay, let's get started. Our first sort of topic we wanted to throw around everyone. And I think it's a simple one, but I think there'll be a lot of interesting answers to this question. What is the number one question people ask when they call your business with a concern? And we'll start with, we'll start with Al.
That's a great question. And interestingly enough, while they tend to be sort of shaded towards their vertical, they're all around security. I mean, I find that compliance and security has really been bubbled to the top. It used to be, how much are you? And that's really sort of faded away and more about, how can you help protect me? The headlines have gone a long way towards moving that needle, frankly. If you think about the JBS Meatpacking Company, if you think about the Colonial Pipeline, which shut down the eastern seaboard south of New Jersey. Actually, I think New Jersey, Paul, some of that was hit, wasn't it? If I'm not mistaken.
All the way down from New Jersey through Tennessee, I think.
Yeah, we heard about it here in Canada too. And I know here at CDN Technologies, we get a lot of people filling out like web forms, calling us. And the biggest question that they ask is, can I get a quote for, or how much do you charge for? And, we're always happy to help. We're Canadians. But essentially, to make a really good and informed decision and to work with someone that can work within your timelines and your budget and your location, we have to ask a few questions, because it's not like an apples to apples type of shop. When you're shopping for daily IT service and support, like IT is very broad. Our industry isn't regulated like, the automotive industry or banking or dentistry. we all have different types of service models. So before you can accurately compare fees and services and deliverables of one IT company to another, it's always good when people think, okay, what will I get for my money? Because it's a bonus when they're shopping for IT service and IT support and IT security, and they know how much that they've spent in the past on like hardware, software, and licenses and subscriptions and cloud apps. What about you in Louisiana, Henry? How are things for you there when people call and ask?
Some of the
Are you out from underwater, Henry? Let's start with that. Are you now out from underwater down there? They had a hurricane down there for everybody who's.
Oh no, we all know. and Henry, before you answer, I just want to pause on it because I know I skipped ahead to ask Al, but I thought it was interesting what Al said about how times have changed from people calling you and saying, "What's the price?" Because they know they need you. So maybe you can comment on what you were going to say about the number one question, but also maybe respond to, I guess people have figured out now that whatever the price is, it'll be worth it if my business is in trouble.
Was that me to expand on that?
No, for Henry, just maybe comment on that as well.
Certainly.
I'll come back to it, though, because I will expand on it.
Yeah, I'll pass it back to you, Al. If a company is in trouble, unfortunately, when they call us, price is never the issue.
Right.
It just, without a doubt, it's never the issue. They're always asking, have you done this before? What's your expertise in this sort of scenario? And can you help us? It's 90 to 180 days later, a lot of times before they ask the price. So the frustrating part for us in those scenarios is the lack of awareness of the terminologies, technologies, and just the overall approach that is needed to adequately serve them. While we're always eager and glad to help people, Howard, in my organization, what we find is that the questions that they're asking are the wrong ones a lot of times, and they're not adequately informed about, how do I really pick somebody who really can help me?
So part of what you have to do is educate them first so they start asking better questions. But I guess there's the idea, as you said, when they call you, they know they need something. They just maybe don't know what it is.
Yeah. Al,
do you want to pop back in and talk about price there for a second?
So what as I said, the security has really become the paramount motivation for people, at least calling us. And again, we're in the shadow of New York, so this may be regional, though I speak to a lot of MSPs, and it's more broad than just in the Northeast. And I think a lot of that is driven by the work from home environment that has now been created, resultant of the pandemic, but is really, in fact, the new norm. This great reopening, which is the title of this webinar, is really about a new normal, in fact. And there's the workforce has changed dramatically from the four corners of an office to the four corners of an office plus the four corners of everybody's home. Because even those that come into the office are now starting to work at least a day or two from home and extended the workforce in there. And so that's driven a lot of the questions about security, and prices become less of a concern because what's happened as a result of the pandemic, most business owners realized for the first time, we are more like a necessity utility. Think electric and water. Than a cost center. Think, can I get the cheapest plumber to come in and fix my sink?
Right.
And that's gotten cost out of at least for us. And that's not to say there aren't those that come in and say, well, I am only paying X. There's a lot of MSPs that are willing to have that discussion on price. And I'm always saying, listen, there's plenty out there. Please go to them. That's just not who we are, because we take the approach that we're obligated to protect you from the corners of your office to the corners of your house and everywhere in between. And that costs money to do that. And then if pricing is a motivating factor, you're not going to get the security, or you're not going to get the comfort that you need to be able to conduct business today.
So they call your business. I'm sorry, Barb.
No, I wanted to pick up on what Al said about the great reopening. All of us here as an MSP, we're resilient. Like, we're great companies to do business with. We've been around, like, you know what, we're not a tech turn owner operator overnight. The pandemic was not our first rodeo, so to say, in dealing with an outage and quick transitioning. When you work with a reputable MSP, like all of us here, we're resilient.
Well, I wanted to just sort of continue on because Al talked a little bit about, if you're looking for something that's cheap and and cheerful, maybe that this isn't the right place for you. But if you're looking for depth of knowledge, and again, part of the education process is people calling saying, how do I know what I need, and then what's the best direction? Maybe Paul, you can pick up on this, because there's a part of someone who's calling you. They know that there's something wrong, but they don't really know all the different options they might have. Paul, so what is that? What's your answer to how do I know what I need and what's the best direction I should follow?
Sure. So how do you know what you need? Well, the first way of knowing that is obviously contacting an MSP like one of us and having a full audit done, knowing where your gaps are, where are your blind spots. And there's not just one thing you need. Often people ask me, hey, what do you recommend I need? And I say, well, I don't know yet. But once we get a little further down there and we get to like the prescription, like, all right, here's like the stack. Here's the solution that we're going to put together for you. They're like, well, what if I just do this one thing? Well, let me ask you, if you go home at night and you just lock your door, does that mean that no one's going to break into your house?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, but if I lock my door and I have an alarm, am I safer? Yeah. And so it's about those multiple layers of security, because you don't know where the threat's going to come from. Is it going to come from an email, which is probably the number one way that threats do enter an organization? But will it come some other way? Will it come through a third-party vendor? Will it come through a phone call?
Right.
Often we get phone calls from. There's been a scam going around, pretending to be your bank and asking someone, "Hey, we need to verify some information off your debit card." Well, what are they really doing? They're just asking you to, "Hey, just give us your money."
Right. Exactly. Tim, what I'm hearing from Paul and Al so far is that there's a sort of like an education process where people might think they're calling you because of one thing, but as they get through the process, they feel that they're going to learn that there are other things they might actually need. And then, as Paul said, you need to prescribe them something at that point.
Yeah, that's true. It's true with small businesses. It's even true with larger businesses too, businesses that might have an IT staff. The first place anybody has to start is doing an assessment just to find out what they have. I mean, if you go to the doctor, he's not going to start with writing you a prescription. You can't just tell him what's wrong with you and he say, okay, I'll believe you. Here,
That's right.
This is what you do. No, he takes x-rays. He's going to weigh you. He asks you questions. And he makes the decision about what's wrong with you. And he decides, or she decides, what they need to prescribe to. The same is true with going into a larger business. They might have an existing IT staff, but you really need to start with a network assessment. And the report is awesome. It's going to get some alignment between the executive management and the IT department. It will set the direction and set out tasks that they need to do and need to be looked at. This IT department could have been saying this for years, but to have a third party validate it is very helpful to an executive team.
The assessment isn't quick, and
No.
it's not always cheap either, right?
Yeah.
It's we're going to bring in a team and some valuable resources to get you to that point.
But
Yeah,
Paul,
there are
picking up.
tools. Sorry.
I was going to say, picking up on what Paul said about, you can do it yourself. You can put up, put in some locks, or you might install your own little, Ring doorbell. But if you want real security, you've got to hire experts. And what I wanted to say is, so if somebody's listening to this, they might say, well, why wouldn't I just, hire an IT guy and go get some computers from Best Buy or order them on Amazon? Why don't I just do this thing myself? Why do I need you guys? Barb?
Okay. Happy to answer that, because if you've considered hiring an employee to handle your daily IT issues, you're likely looking at the money. Like, what is this going to cost me? So when you compare like the annual salary and what it costs to outsource, like when you do the math, it's a serious savings when you decide to outsource, because you have to remember that in addition to someone's salary, here in Canada, you have to consider CPP, you have to consider UI, you have to consider vacation days, you have to consider sick days, and then that adds up. And then you also have to consider their tools, because running these network assessments, like, they're tools that we use to do this. Tools cost money, licenses cost money. So now the costs keep going up and up and up. But wait, there's more. There's also training and skill development. And what happens when they leave? What do you do next? Okay, so there's a lot of costs involved when you want to bring an in-house IT person. And eventually, as your company grows, a time will come for that. But you can't hire just one person, because that one person can't work 24/7, 365. You have to hire at least 2 or 3. So I think that once you consider like the costs, because all of us, we run our shops, 24/7, 365. People can get a hold of us, through live chat, like email and phone. Like, we're always there. We are an IT department within your company, and we all have a team of elites to assist the businesses moving forward in a positive direction. That's what an MSP does. And then, last thing is, I don't think most companies have the experience, the in-house experience, to properly vet candidates for the role of an IT guy or an IT girl, because it takes someone with a real technical background to figure out what level and what experience that this person that they're bringing on has. So, I'd have to say that the same thing is happening today when you go to buy a computer. Computer procurement post-pandemic or during the pandemic, that's a job in itself.
Oh, for sure.
These days. And there's nothing worse than learning you didn't buy enough of a computer, or you overpaid for a computer, or the computer that you bought doesn't have the right licenses, doesn't have the right operating system, doesn't have the right graphics card. Your monitor's not going to work with it. It doesn't have a warranty. And that's why when you go to return them, there's this huge restocking fee because they're garbage, because they don't know what to do with them.
To piggyback off what Barb just said, and money aside, because when it comes to protecting yourself, your business, your family, money, we say is no object. But when hiring or considering to hire an employee, say compared to a managed services provider, or having both of us, which is great too, it's the knowledge gap. Some people, the same guy that's great at fixing your printer is not, the same guy necessarily that's going to be watching your firewall. And the managed services provider will have individuals really filling all those right seats on the bus. The same way how, if you're having a heart attack, well, it's great that there's a gastroenterologist right there, but I'm not sure that this is his area of specialty.
Yeah, I don't want, if I'm having a heart attack, I don't want some kid at Best Buy who's working part-time trying to tell me which heart attack computer to buy. Tim,
defibrillators are in aisle 5.
Exactly. I'm just really glad that Paul didn't say
all this
proctologist.
plastic.
That's all.
That's right. Tim, Meredith, what do you want to say to all of this? Why not just hire some kid, bring him in, and have him set it up?
Oh, we make a lot of money when companies do that, and then they call us to straighten it all out.
Yes.
But even companies that have existing IT people on staff, they're very smart to augment those IT people with an MSP. You might have accountants on staff, but you probably have an outsourced accounting firm. Same for marketing. You might have a marketing person, but you also leverage a marketing company, outside marketing company. Same thing for legal. Now for HR, it just makes sense to do it for IT too.
Yeah.
Not only is it cheaper, like Barb said, but it makes your existing IT stuff better. It leverages. All of a sudden, they have all these resources and all this experience that they can leverage now, and it makes their productivity even better. So,
I know this is not part.
Do it.
I think that's a great point too, and I just want to quickly before we move on. But I think that if somebody listening is like thinking, "Oh, great, I have IT, but these people can make not only my IT better, will give the IT person some security, knowing that if there's something that they have trouble with because they have a contract with your companies, they're able to reach out and figure it out." I think we've set the table nicely for the next segment, which is, okay, so I'm shopping around for an IT company. Obviously, you'd like them to use yours. What should I look for? And then the second part, what should I expect to pay for IT support for my business? Now, I know we talked about, let's have a conversation first and education, and then we'll talk money. But now we've got a two-parter here, and let's start with Henry. What should I look for? What should I expect to pay?
Those are really simple questions to answer after you have a really good understanding of the environment. Anybody that comes in and says, our flat fee price, period, right off the bat is X per whatever, is probably baking in some assumptions that may not be correct for you. So engage in them in their process a little further to really understand maybe what are the assumptions, what are the security frameworks you're going to put into place, those kind of things. But kind of going back a little to the first question, Howard, what do I look for in the company? How big should they be, or those kind of things that we look for is, we got to understand what the company you're talking with brings to the table that's important to you. If you really value instant response, how are they staffed? How are they sized? Are they a one-man band and you're their only customer? Well, that might work great until they get another customer. Are they a 500-person company or a 5,000-person company, and you're going to get completely lost in a sea? So there's the size is somewhat irrelevant until you really have a better conversation with them and understand how are they going to relate to you? How are they going to customize their approach to what your needs are? And also I would put out there that how are they going to educate you? How's this new partner that you're bringing on? How are they going to raise your game in terms of awareness? This is a dramatically, rapidly changing world in IT. It changes minute by minute. What we did yesterday is no longer sufficient to what we need to do today to protect our clients. And if the business owner won't engage and really understand that and dig in a little bit on the technology and just allow us to educate them, then it's not going to work. That no matter what they do, hire in-house, hire a big shop, hire a tiny shop, do a mix of that, their results are not going to be as good as what they could have gotten had they really spent a little bit of time and understood what the IT company has to offer. We're somewhere in the middle there at Turnkey Solutions. We're not 5,000 and we're definitely not one. But it always comes down to, for my customers, I'm going to show you the promises I'm going to make based on what your needs are. And I'm going to spend the time with you to show you how we're going to make those promises happen. Doesn't matter if I'm 50 people or 5,000 or one. supporting you. What are the promises that I need to make, and what are the guarantees, and what are the expectations, and how are we going to make those really, really happen at an excellent level?
Is it even fair? I guess I'm going to ask it anyway, but and then Al, you can weigh in this as well. So it's hard to say to a customer, here's what it's going to cost until we find out what you need.
Yeah.
So in terms of what to look for, Al, in a IT company, maybe you could talk a little bit about what Henry talked about, and then maybe educate people in terms of, well, I mean, this is the type of costs that can be associated with IT.
Yeah, so costs are, excuse me, different MSPs price their services differently. So you've got some MSPs that price it per user, some MSPs that price it per device, endpoints, workstation servers, network devices, things of that nature. Some include licensing, some don't. Pricing is all over the map in the MSP space. In our organization, we are per user all-in seat pricing. What does that mean? That means you pay one flat price for a user and includes everything relative to support. Actually, we have 3 different levels of that, but let's leave that alone for a moment. And it also includes at least your basic Office licensing, because ultimately, and here's the problem that I've always experienced in the past, and we used to be a per device, and we used to be a more traditional MSP in that regard. When things go wrong, everything's the IT guy's problem. Everything is the IT guy's problem. I don't care who did it, who didn't do it. So you have a network printer, and the network copier guy comes in there and he says, well, it's the IT guy's fault. Like that literally my head would explode when that would happen. And the only person that gets hurt in that discussion is the client, because ultimately they're in the middle of a he said, she said. And it is a brutal position for a client to be in. And unfortunately, when they lead with price, when a client leads a discussion with price, or an MSP starts there, you're invariably going to go down a road that a guy like me is going to come and take that business away from you. Because ultimately, the first time the client lands in the middle of it, he said, she said, price doesn't matter anymore. They want the damn thing fixed. They want it fixed now. Someone take ownership of the damn thing and fix it. That's all they want to know. And what's happening in the he said, she said, the copier guy's saying, well, it's not my problem. If you want me to look into it, it's $285 an hour. And the MSP says, it's not my problem. It's the printer guy's problem. If you want me to look into it, it's $285 an hour. They don't care about, and I think it was Henry that said it before, when someone comes through in an emergency, they don't care what the price is. They want it fixed. Now, they will care when they get the bill. Because then, then they're going to be like, well, whose fault was it? Why should I be paying for this? Because it wasn't my fault, right? So, that's why we're an all-in seat shop. And so for us, our prices are fixed. And yes, as Henry said, we make certain assumptions about an environment that way. But that's because we've been in business for almost 30 years. And you can, there's the 80-20 rule. 80% of all clients or 80% of all problems can be summed up with 20% of your clients. And that same issue is true in reverse. 80% of all problems cover 20% of everything. And so it's pretty easy to price in 30 years. So
I love the fact that everyone was nodding when you mentioned that. It's like it's always someone else's fault, but at that point, price isn't the issue. But there are so many, and you mentioned this. Somebody mentioned about how quickly everything changes in this business because of the speed of the world we live in. There's so many new viruses and so much ransomware out in the world. How do we make sure, as potential clients, that I'm not getting infected by hiring, one of you, and maybe Will? I know we're supposed to. Well, Will's not here. How about anyone else want to start with that, and then we'll get to Al as well.
Well, not having your.
I think you just put me at the end of that list, didn't you, Howard?
No, only because someone who was supposed to be here is not here. So we're gonna get to let someone. We'll tell you what. We'll get to Al in a minute again. I know everyone's like, "Oh, Al needs more airtime." But why don't we start with you, Barb, or Tim? Answer the question about ransomware and why we should expect not to be infected by what you guys do.
As the hostess with the mostest, I think I'm going to mute Al. So who's got something to say
Don't mute Al.
on this?
Who wants to lead off that discussion?
We spend a lot of money on tools, and not infecting our clients is something that we wake up and think about every day. And we go to extreme measures not to infect our clients and not to install software that can harm them. Yeah.
That would seem like a pretty basic thing to me.
Yeah, Howard, the first thing that I would commend you on bringing up that question is that not everybody asks that, unfortunately. I would recommend wholeheartedly anybody watching this as a business owner or decision maker to have that hard question regularly with anybody who touches your technology. It's called risk management, and doing an assessment on your connections, your people who have access to your most important assets. So we love that question when a customer asks that, and if they don't ask it, we're going to bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
The underlying question that all of us will go to is, or the kind of the direction I think that we're going to go to is look, here's our security plan. Here's the framework. Here's the process. Here's the vision for how we're going to secure things. Here's how we're constantly educating our team. And here's how we're securing our tools to make sure that our tools are not the delivery method by which a hacker gets to you, because it's a phenomenally powerful question. And I think all of us in the past have seen our competitors and other IT companies in our markets get hacked, and they usually don't know it until days or weeks go by, and the managed service providers' customers get hacked, because we do have really elevated access to our clients' systems because of the tools that we're using to protect them, because we know some passwords that are important on their systems. So just have the question, and don't take a real glossy answer. I would venture to say way beyond price, way beyond even response time and customer service, which those are important. Those are really important, not to diminish those. But how are you securing yourself so that you can adequately secure me is the number one question that I would encourage business owners to ask.
Yeah, you think that'd be table stakes. Go ahead, Barb.
To vet, to piggyback on what Henry said, it's really important to vet your vendors, because essentially all of the data that they have, it's yours. Okay. So how are they storing your data? How are they keeping your information safe? As a mom, when I drop my kids off at daycare, I want to know, how are you keeping my kids safe? These are normal questions that everyone should be asking with their data and with their technology. And if you are giving someone permission to connect with you. So vetting vendors is what we as MSPs do a lot. Mm-hmm. And in addition to that, lots of our customers, they're receiving vendor questionnaires. And if you are, and the reason why is because if they can't deliver and it interrupts the supply chain, how does it impact the next person? So how are you being a good steward of other people's information? So you can ask that question, because let's just say that you're a manufacturing company and you have a deal with Costco or Walmart, where you have to deliver X amount of units by X day in a certain amount of time. And if you don't do it, you're going to get penalized. Okay. If your systems go down because of someone else, how is that going to impact the vendor chain? So you really need to be mindful of what the business continuity processes of your vendors are, and you need to be mindful of what the security that they have over your data as well. So Henry, you're right. We do that stuff all the time. MSPs are known for doing that all the time. And to piggyback on what the rest of us, like all of us here, we've been in business for 30 years. Like this isn't our first rodeo. We're familiar with customer service delivery and touch points and meeting deadlines and executing and being actionable with the things that we preach.
But I think that should give someone watching or listening some comfort. This group here is assembled, has a lot of experience, and I think maybe, Al, you might want to finish this if you want by saying, like, because of the experience we have, asking that question, what kind of comfort do you give a potential client? Is it just the fact, hey, we've been doing this a long time, we've seen everything, don't you worry, or how do you make them feel comfortable signing on with you, knowing that you won't be the source, hopefully, of infecting them with whatever comes down the pipeline?
He says he's from Brooklyn. He brings a bat.
There's a whole other kind of security.
They bring a bat, you bring a gun.
That's right. The Untouchables. Great movie, by the way.
Great movie, exactly. It happens to be a great question. And to Henry's point, all too often nobody asks it.
Really?
And it's actually the most important question in my opinion, because the reality is that the tools that MSPs use, every MSP uses. In fact, almost every IT person, even the one-man shops use, have the opportunity to infect your system. And that opportunity is actually outside of our control because they're reliant on the supplier of the software to have done something called application pen testing. Microsoft Office gets attacked. So that's what I mean by the tools themselves are exploitable. And in fact, the most risk to every company is from the supply chain. And if you think about the Colonial Pipeline, they're a supply chain provider, and they shut down the Eastern Seaboard. If you think about JBS Meat, they're a supply chain organization, and 80% of the meat packing of the meat in the U.S. was impacted by that. And I can give you a litany of attacks that were impacted as a result of the supply chain. And what Barb said also is nothing could be more poignant, that vetting your vendors is important. The question then becomes, how do you vet your vendor? How do you vet your MSP? First and foremost, tenure. We've been in business 30 years. If we weren't keeping our clients safe and ensuring that we were safe also, we probably wouldn't be in business today. So everybody on this call has been in business at least a decade, at least. And so the first thing that every business should be looking for, have you been around at least 10 years? And I'm not saying that to put, our younger colleagues, I don't mean younger age-wise, but younger in terms of being in business. But frankly, we know things that they couldn't possibly know right now.
Right.
We've just been through the ringer a million times, and we've grown up in this industry. And a decade is like dog years, right? Every year in IT is 7 years in real time, right? So 10 years in business is 70 years of life in the IT world. So I always equate the dog years because I love dogs. But anyway, that notwithstanding. So first and foremost, how long has the IT person been in business? And then ask them, when was the last time that they've done a vulnerability assessment on their own organization and a penetration test on their own organization, and show me evidence. Listen, I'm a Reagan conservative. Trust but verify. I believe what you said. Just show me. That's all. Just show me. And so those two things together will almost guarantee that you've got a secure MSP. Sorry, Barb, I wasn't done.
Go ahead,
now
Barb.
You can.
Thank you. But piggybacking on the whole going through the ringer, MSPs going through the ringer because everything is our fault, and saying and doing, and how do you verify? I know that Tim, Henry, and myself, we're all going through CompTIA certified Trustmark certification for security that says that we're practicing what we preach. We're getting our seal that says, that we abide by NIST, which is the National Industry Standards of Technology, and keeping our information safe, which is your information safe. And then we're paying forward that to our customers so that they can stay safe. I know here in Canada, there's only one other MSP that has it, and they're out west. But essentially here in Ontario, in Toronto, in the GTA, in all this area, we're the only ones.
Wow. And it's funny, I when I saw that question, I wasn't sure where it was going to go, but it really is, as Henry said, it is a great question to ask potential partners, because you're charged with keeping my business safe. And if your business isn't safe, then how can I trust what's going to happen? And maybe we can start to wrap it up by saying we've had a lot of advice for businesses that are looking for IT and IT security. Let's just go around and say, what would the best advice y'all would have for any business interested in procuring your services? Barb?
Ooh, the best advice is to have a network assessment, discovery, and audit, to piggyback what Paul and Tim and everyone here has said, because that whole audit process gives you an idea of where you're at this point in time and where your gaps are. So an assessment will let you know. So get a network assessment. That's like the number one thing that you can do.
How about Paul Nebb in New Jersey? What advice does the New Jersey have for somebody who's looking for business?
Definitely just echo what Barb just said. You don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. And regardless of the industry that you're in, you're vulnerable. And so seek out an MSP who can do that assessment. Not like Al said, not someone that's going to walk in, say, change this, change that, give me this much money. Mm-hmm. It's really much more than that. The relationship of a client with their MSP is a really deep one, and one that, at least at Titan Technologies, we take very seriously. We're your IT department.
Tim Meredith in Bristol, Tennessee.
I would say,
what's your advice for a business?
I would say the guy or gal at the top has got to be involved. You can't just outsource this and, give it to somebody else and let's just get it done. No, the executives, the leadership, the CEO needs to be involved and have an interest, because IT, maybe at one point you could outsource IT, but not anymore. It's too central to a business.
Henry, Overton, you've been listening to this discussion and contributing yourself. Just somebody watching, your best advice for someone looking for IT as a potential partner?
What everybody said. In other words, vet your partners extraordinarily well. Commit to understanding more today than you did yesterday about technology and security, no matter what your position and no matter how big of an IT department you have, or how big your company is. So vet them well, commit to learning more today than you did know yesterday, and partner deeply. What everybody's mentioning to or referring to is commit to a deeper partnership than just writing a check and assuming all accountability is transferred. That partnership where you engage in a deeper relationship, not just a vendor transactional deal, but a commitment and a partnership towards your success is something to not settle for not having that. And if you don't have that partnership with your IT team or your managed services provider right now, I would suggest try to kindle it. Try to build that back with them, because it is incredibly important to the success of every company to make sure that the leadership and the IT are really on the same page.
Unfortunately, Al, we're out of time, so we'll talk to you next. Al, okay, the second last word to Al, and then we'll let Barb wrap it up. Al's like, when do I get my turn? What about your advice to a business? We've heard lots of great stuff for you today, but maybe you can summarize it for us.
So let me just add to Henry's point for a moment that if you don't have that relationship, Al Alper, Absolute Logic, 855-255-1550.
I just muted him.
No. Al was doing great. So are you unmuting Al or are you muting him?
Asked to unmute. Al, you were muted. What's up with that?
I don't know. Al's been muted. I didn't do it.
Ask to unmute.
Al, can you unmute yourself so we can say goodbye? Well, there he goes.
I'm so glad we had this time
together. Hey, Barb Paluszkiewicz, last word to you before we wrap things up on this.
I didn't finish. Wait.
I'm sorry. Al, what did you want to say?
Before I got rudely muted.
That wasn't me. That was Barb.
I know.
It wasn't me.
So I would say that yes, that what everybody said is absolutely a spot on. I'd like to put a finer point on it and say that you are literally the partner in that business's success. And I know that everybody talked about partnership, but business owners have to, they know they need technology. Some of them think of it as a commodity, but the reality is if they're all of their hardware, the bed, they'd be out of business. Nobody can go back to pen and pencil anymore. That just doesn't exist in today's economy. And so they need to understand, and it's up to MSPs like us to really explain how this really is a partner in their success of their business, not just a vendor business partnership, if you would. And our job, our responsibility is to help convey that through metrics that help them to understand it. So yes, do a risk assessment, and that risk assessment has to be a network assessment. It has to include the vulnerability assessment. It has to include penetration tests so you can demonstrate how risky their organization is, because every CEO knows one thing for sure: they own risk. And when you can expose risk to them, they can do something about it. No one is better suited to expose risk for an organization than an MSP. An MSP, that's a C, and I'm going to go back to my 10-year benchmark. If they're not in business 10 years, they don't know what they're doing. No disrespect to my colleagues, but we've been down the road far too long. You can't pull tools off the shelf and get those answers. You've got to have the seasoned experience. When you go for heart surgery, you don't want the kid that just came out of university. You want the guy that's opened 1,000 hearts and repaired them with success. That's what 10 years does in that. That's
equation. A great point.
Anyway.
Well, thank you very much, Paul Nebb, Tim Meredith, Al Alper, and Henry Overton. Barb, any final thoughts?
Thank you guys for being part of my team and helping educate Canada here about what to look for when shopping for an MSP, about managing risks and taking a look at technology as a whole with respect to your organization. I'm happy that across the globe, all of us here have the same viewpoints on safety and security for our customers and clients, and how to vet everybody and how to keep everybody safe. So thank you very much for being on this panel with me.
As I mentioned on the off the top of the show, off the top of the webinar, you can comment. If you have some comments and follow up, everyone will see what you've written. And if you need to ask any follow-up questions, for sure, get a hold of anybody on the panel. Thank you very much. Stay safe and well, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Oh, hold on.
Henry, if someone wanted to get a hold of you, how do they connect with you?
www.tks.la, www.tks, like turnkey solutions, .la, as in Louisiana, or 225-751-4444. We got a team of people 24/7 ready to answer calls and help you out. So we're looking forward to being of service.
What about you, Al? How do we get a hold of you?
So absolutelogic.com or 855-255-1550. Easiest way to get a hold of us.
Paul Nebb in New Jersey.
www.timefortitan.com or area code 972-6665.
And finally to Bristol, Tennessee, where this technology exists. Tim?
Yeah, barely. www. Yeah, we're like behind, way at the back end of things. I think sometimes. www.techequals.com.
Fantastic. Okay. And Barb, of course, CDN Technologies.
Yeah, cdntechnologies.com, 905-542-9759, or shoot me an email, barb@cdntechnologies.com. Peace and love, everybody.
Always a pleasure, folks.
guys.
Take care.
Later, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you, Mike.
Never dwell in the